Welcome in, everybody. We haven't had a webinar in a couple months, so it's exciting to all be here and see everyone joining. So we'll just wait a few minutes to make sure that everybody that wants to be here is able to get in. I think we've got about 14 people in the room right now. So we'll just give it a few minutes before we start, just a couple minutes, and then we'll jump into it. While we're waiting, some housekeeping that we can touch on is we will answer questions at the end. So please do put those in the chat. And yep, hosts and panelists are in the chat. We could see everybody should be able to write in the chat. Yes. And then we'll answer those questions at the end. We'll make sure we leave time for that. And also, we will give out 2 code words for anybody that needs a CEU certificate. If you're in NASM, if you're in NAPO, and you need a certificate, you can email us at the end. You can email your customer success account manager, or you can reach out to me. I can put my email in the chat at the end. We'll make sure we get you those. And we'll just give it a couple more minutes here because I see people are still joining, which is great. Welcome in. We're so excited to have everybody here. We're excited to do another webinar in our Ask an Expert webinar series. And today we're going to be talking about winning more business by positioning Maxsold alongside your services. And so my name is Heather Dawson. I work here in business development at Maxsold. My colleague Cesar Fuentes is here as well. You can't see him, he's in the background helping us also. And then I do want to introduce everybody on the panel. So what we have today for our webinar are 3 of our partners. And when I say partners, I mean professional businesses from various locations throughout North America that are leveraging Maxsold as a useful resource and tool for the services that they offer their clients. They have built Maxsold into the services they offer their clients, and we're going to ask them some questions today about how they navigate initial conversations about Maxsold with their clients. So we have Stacy Madkali. Apologize, Stacy, if I'm saying your name wrong. Stacy is the owner of Put It There, and she is in Central New Jersey. We have Brad Sackett, the owner of Boomer Movers in the Calgary area in Alberta, Canada. And then we have Janet Laird, who is, she runs a company called WellRive, where they do senior moves throughout the US. And she's based out of Dallas. So we're going to be getting a chance to hear from Stacy, Brad, and Janet today. So we've got, let's see, it's about 6:05. We're going to jump into it in one moment with the questions that we have for them to answer. I will give everybody the first code word for anybody looking for their CEU certificate, and I will put it in the chat as well in the comments here, the comments. The first code word is going to be conversations. So first code word, conversations, and I will type it down here for you guys so you have it. All right. So let's get started. All right, so the first question that we would love to ask our panelists here today is, when you identify that a client needs to sell items, how do you begin the conversation about the benefits of running an online auction? So I'll start, Stacy, with you. If you can share how you give that feedback to your client, how you navigate the conversation.
So I typically, do the walkthrough with them at the consultation, and I'd say most of the auctions that I'm doing are involved in a downsize or a move management. So it's kind of an additional service at the end. And I talk to them about, how much stuff they have, what they're getting rid of, when's the last time they've used it, all of those kinds of things, and just kind of talk to them about, the Maxsold process is when we have a large home and a lot of things to get rid of. The Maxsold process is the way to get 90% or more of the contents of the items that they're not taking with them sold. And that would be their high-end items, their, collectibles, their good things, kitchenware, the things that are of lesser value. So that's one of my features that I talk about a lot is that 90% or more of the contents can be sold. And that's a good thing that people like to hear.
Very true. People want a solution for everything. Brad, how do you navigate the conversation initially?
I begin by asking the client what their main goal is. Most clients are looking for a combination of financial return, efficiency, and just relief of stress from the process of downsizing. So then then explain to them how by using Maxsold, it gives them a organized approach and efficient way to sell a large volume of items and to reach a broader group of buyers. So, yeah.
Cool. So you touch on having a big variety, getting the reach out there to a variety of people, sounds like.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Janet, how do you navigate that initial conversation?
Well, much like Stacy and Brad, I do the similar things, but I also ask if they've already tried to sell some of their items using different venues like Facebook Marketplace or garage sale or whatever the case may be. So I have an understanding of what their experience was, how why they are now going to ask about auctioning, etc. So I try to get a feel of what they've already done. And then I'm very much a fan of having data, like Stacy mentioned, that 90% sell-through rate. Because I think if you can have that conversation and give the client data and examples, it really helps them understand what that experience would be for them.
Perfect. Yes, it does give some comfort and confidence when you share data around what their expectations can be. I agree. So our next question is, how do you explain why $1 starting bids actually can create stronger bidding activity and higher sell-through rates? How do you navigate that, Stacy?
So I talk to them about, how we create lots and things are, get creative and some things, that are of lesser value are mixed in with things of higher value to kind of make the entire lot sell. So I think for me, that's the approach that I take. I try not to focus too much on, that dollar bidding because it can discourage people. But it does come up in the conversation, when necessary. A lot of times you get the, what are you listing it for? And I have to do the explanation that everything starts with the same, but things that are, cataloged and documented and photographed properly will get, those keyword searches and get the value that they are, even though they're starting at $1, just like everything else.
Perfect. Brad, how do you navigate that one?
This is about the most common question I get asked by customers. Like, as soon as they hear that dollar, oh, everything starts at $1, they're immediately, you can see the hesitation in them. So I find this one very important. So I explain to the client that starting at $1, more bidders become engaged and it creates a competitive bidding, which creates urgency on the items. More and buyers are more likely to return as the auction closes to see is that stuff still at $1 type thing, and it drives a lot more traffic to the site. And then I just usually pull out the phone, use the app, take a picture of the item, and show them examples of what has sold on Maxsold, saying, that item sold for X amount of dollars these last 5 times, and I show them, right, doing it that way, and that seems to really calm them by doing that. So
Yes, leveraging that AI piece can definitely help, showing them what things have sold for before. Absolutely.
yeah.
Janet, how do you answer this question when it comes up?
Well, I actually embrace it because I think it reduces barrier to entry. So somebody in traditional estate sale saw an item and the price tag on it was $200. They might just say, I don't know. But starting at $1 really allows more people to be curious about what is in the auction. So to me, it reduces the barrier to entry. But the other thing is I talk to them about, well, what are you going to do with this item, anyway? So say it doesn't sell in a garage sale or a Facebook marketplace or even at the auction. What are your plans for it? Well, I'm going to donate it or dispose of it. And I'm like, well, even if the item only sells for $10, that person's picking up this item and taking it with them. And then you don't have to pay for disposal fees or donation fees or something to come pick it up. So to me, I just embrace it because it's something that allows more people to participate in the shopping experience.
Definitely. And I like how you touched on that barrier to entry with the conversation. What advice would you give to newer organizers or move managers, professionals that are just starting to do this with their clients, and they are nervous about addressing that objection? What advice would you give them? And I know you coach teams who are probably doing this throughout the nation. So how do you handle that?
Are you talking to me? I'm assuming.
Yeah, Janet,
Oh,
just
sorry.
for you. Yeah, sorry.
When I started doing it, you can ask this, I was nervous too. I'm like, oh gosh, I don't know. I've never done this. What do I ask? What do I say? But then I come down to the basics, which is don't oversell it. Just be real and just be honest with people. An auction may not be the best choice for everything that they have. But if you are genuine about what it will do or what it can do, and that you can't guarantee that they're going to make $1 million on the auction, but I think honesty and just being straightforward and knowing the product and the service is really, don't abandon, in other words, the conversations that they already have with customers about downsizing, about moving, about packing and unpacking. Don't abandon how you do that. Don't be someone else you're not. Just talk about yet another service that allows them to, take care of some of the items and give them new homes. So I just keep it simple but real.
Perfect. Yeah, keeping it simple, keeping it honest and real. I love that. That's definitely. Brad, question for you. What do you say when a client is considering a traditional estate sale instead of an online auction? How do you explain the benefits and the difference between those two?
Well, I explain that an estate sale relies on foot traffic and posted prices. Well, a Maxsold auction uses online exposure and competitive bidding to bring buyers to the table. I just get into, here's how you run an estate sale, and here's what a Maxsold auction is, and really let them make the choice. And then just give them my successes, because I offer both services with my company. And 90% of the time, a Maxsold auction is what gets picked and how they decide to go, simply because the online exposure. I explain the amount of views that they get, and then I give them the data for my last 15 auctions, right? Like here, I had 120,000 views on this, I had 90,000 views on this auction type thing. And that really seems to, give them some, it gives them some food for thought to help them make informed decision type thing.
That makes sense. Stacy, is there anything that you would add to that you do when your clients are trying to decide?
So I share with them my personal experiences with my business, having had clients do in-person estate sales in the past. And I have two experiences that I share, like bookends, one very on in early on in my career and one very recently. And I explained to them that, the in-person estate sale, in my opinion, will sell all of the really valuable stuff and the really high-end stuff, the things that their clients subscribe to. But then there's usually 70 to 80% of the house that's left behind after an in-person estate sale. And I say to them that, if we do the online version, we have people who are shopping in the middle of the night, people who are shopping, on their lunch hour, whenever they want. They don't have to be strictly to this Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday schedule. And I feel like that piques their interest even a little bit more based on that experience. So I think sharing my own personal experience as to why I use Maxsold is very helpful.
Awesome. Janet, is there anything that you would add to that when they're trying to decide why to do the online auction?
Well, I mean, it's sometimes the biggest thing is you don't have people in your house and you don't have, a security risk, or you don't have people casing your house. And they have no, you know what I mean? And we deal with a lot of seniors, and even if you're not a senior, security is always important. So I think a lot of people like that online option because they don't have people in their house. And I'm talking about traditional estate sales because I have never done an estate sale, but I've gone to estate sales. So, and they've always been in somebody's house. So I just equate it to that. And a lot of HOAs here don't allow people in their house for a auction or estate sale, rather. I'm sorry.
Right. That is true. Yeah, I experienced that myself with the HOAs where I am in Hilton Head. The online auction is the only way to do it because you can't invite the public in. That
Yeah.
is true. Stacy, so how do you explain the difference between like garage sale pricing and how competitive online bidding works when there's an auction? Because some people are very confused and they think, but what are you going to price it at? Or how do I get the prices I want?
Yeah, so I explained to them that, when we create the lots, obviously larger pieces are listed individually, but, smaller items are listed together to make a interesting grouping that is, of a little bit more interest and a little bit more value. So I think that is one of the approaches that we, try to tell them that, if somebody wants one thing out of a lot of 12 pieces, it's their responsibility to purchase the whole lot. And that is interesting to people. Like, oh, okay, so I can get rid of everything. I don't have to do the donation process. I don't have to, pay a hauler, which could be quite expensive. So I feel like sharing that experience with them. And, we do get very creative with our lots that we make to make sure that, there's something in there that everybody's looking for.
That makes sense. Yeah, love that. Brad, question for you. How do you explain the advantages of an online sale compared to donations when people are like, maybe I should just donate it all. Maybe it's not really worth that much.
Well, you look around the home, and I start pulling out what has value there. And then I tell them, for an effective sale, you need to have all kinds of things. You need to have knick-knacky things. You need to have lots that, the person that wants to spend $5 is going to buy. And then you want those, big ticket items and stuff like that. And there's a cost to donating stuff as well too, right? Unless they're going to, do all the labor and bring it to the thrift store themselves, which assumably they're not, because they've phoned you to help with the problem. Just the cost to donate, it's, I just tell them it's a great way to offset your clear out cost and maybe make a little bit of money on the side as well. So yeah.
Yeah, good point. Offsetting the costs is important to point out a lot of the times because they look at what they're spending, but they forget what they could be spending, right? Janet, is there anything that you could add to this?
Well, I mean, I think Brad brought up some great points, obviously, but I mean, a garage sale, you might get 50 to 100 people, going to that. But donating, they're going to wind up donating what doesn't sell anyway. So if they've made the decision to find a new home for the item, if it doesn't sell, then we're going to take it to donation anyway. And I always tell them, whether it's hangers or whether it's, because people buy hangers, don't give anything to donation until after this auction. And then, because people buy the smallest of things or the largest of things, so I always tell them it's going to get donated anyway if it doesn't sell. So you get the best of both worlds. That's what I tell them.
The best of both worlds. That's perfect. Perfect. Stacy,
Yeah.
is there anything that you would add to follow up on what Brad and Janet said?
Yeah, spot on. I mean, definitely when it's part of a larger program, that we're moving or downsizing, we offset some of the costs. We may offset all of them, but there's no guarantee. Obviously, we don't guarantee that. But yeah, I think what everybody said is spot on. Absolutely.
Awesome. So, Stacy, how do you approach conversations around including the higher value items like sterling silver, jewelry, collectibles, vehicles, even?
Mhm. I do talk to them about having, a nice eclectic mix of things, because that's where you're going to get the best results. Saying, 200 to 400, lots, 400 is a big one, but having that eclectic mix that, people can come and buy lots of things is what's going to get the best results. I show them results from my shop page of previous auctions that we had, where they can see what things sold for in the past. And I tell them, like I said earlier, if it's photographed and documented properly, it's going to get the attention that it needs. But the hard part is it gets the attention at the end. So you just have to sit back and wait.
True.
Yeah.
Brad, how do you help people find comfort and get them to include those higher value items?
Pretty much exactly what Stacy said. I explained to him that, for a successful auction, you need showstopper items and you need low end items and everything in between. And then I provide them with data on other similar high value items that have sold, that, we've sold on our past auctions, or that have sold on the site before. And then, just also tell them, what's your other option. You can deal with Facebook Marketplace and that nightmare, or donate it, right? Like there's not a lot of options here for you to do. So, that's kind of how I do that.
Is there anything that you would add to that, Janet?
Well, I'm fortunate. I have a couple of partners in the area that if there is something like an armory that has to be sold or handled, or they have silver, not real silver or gold, then I have a partner that can give them options too. But the great news about the partner I work with is that they're really honest. They're saying, I think you would do better with Maxsold, with auctioning this off with Janet. And that builds trust to the clients. And above all, you want to be real and honest with them and give them the best price possible. And if you give the customer options, and in the end, it only benefits, you in the end, and really makes the customer happy. So I try to give them options when it's things that are probably the customer's a little bit nervous about, especially high-end jewelry or high-end items like that.
So it's funny, you give them options. I actually am the opposite. I'm also a partner with Maxsold. I've probably run over 60 auctions, and I don't give them the option. I mean, unless it's a niche piece of art that's really only selling in Tokyo, that's a whole different story. But, I tell them we're going to put this sterling silver in the sale because it is going to exponentially increase how many people click and view, which means it correlates with your competitive bidding at the end, which means not only are you going to almost hit 100% sell-through rate, but things that are hard to sell are going to sell for more money. I had a sale that I ran down here on Hilton Head Island in April, and we put her sterling silver flatware set in. I mean, it was comping out for a few thousand that it should sell for in the market. We started at $1. We achieved over 4,000.
Nice.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it works. You put it in front of the market.
Yep.
The market's going to bid. I don't know.
Yeah.
Stacy, question for you. How do you handle conversations? We're going to take a turn now to the emotional attachments people have. So put that hat on. How do you handle the conversations when a client has strong emotional attachments to an item, like a dining room set or an heirloom? Can you maybe share a story about a time when you had to navigate that with somebody?
It comes up often. It really does. And the dining room or the China hutch, those are the ones. So what I do is I talk to them about what's special about the piece. And I want to hear, that the husband in the relationship worked weekends and saved money so that they could buy this beautiful dining room set to host dinners for their family. And, the kids were all around the table. And I give them the moment to share that with me because that's what's important to them. And I show them the respect and the understanding that I get it. I really do get it. And then I also turn the conversation to, the way that the world lives today, again, referencing that dining room set. The kids are having a second office in the house versus a dining room. They're just not using those things anymore. So if we put it in a Maxsold auction and maybe you spent XYZ, many years ago, but today if somebody takes it just for a few dollars, it's because they want it and they're going to use it and they need it and they love it, so that's what I just really, give them an opportunity to tell me why this is so important. And I show them the respect. And usually, that kind of makes it make more sense. And then I also throw in there that if we have to pay to get rid of it, from a hauler, it's going to cost a lot more than if somebody just takes it for a few dollars. So just giving it that, understanding and that respect, that patience, and just allowing them to tell me, a lot of times the client's children, would be like, oh, mom, just get rid of the table. But I don't do that to them. I give them that opportunity to tell me why it's important and why it's sentimental to them. So respecting it.
Perfect. Brad, is there anything that you would add to that? How do you navigate it? Can you think of an example or a story when you've had to navigate this?
Yeah, I had an auction. There was a teak sideboard, a fairly high dollar value item, and the lady was, humming and hawing whether she wanted to put it in the auction. She had no place for it, but she just couldn't let it go. So much like Stacy, I asked her, like, why is it so special to you? She gave me the story that, my dad and mom bought it and they passed it down to me. And now I don't, she's almost feeling bad because she doesn't have room for it anymore. So I let her share that. And then I just put a pin in it and say, we don't have to decide this right now. Let's move on. Then I go to throughout the home and I pick some really easy things like Tupperware out of the kitchen cupboard and start to gain some momentum. And through the downsize and through the auction process. And as they gain momentum and letting go of things, now subconsciously, it's a lot easier for them to let go of that and make that decision to say it is the right thing to do. I have no space for this. And I mean, she was absolutely tickled at the amount of money that she got for it. It sold very, very well. And she was very happy in the end that she did that. So, yeah.
That's interesting how you kind of warm them up to it, like it's an exercise to get used to the idea of parting things and seeing things going into the sale, and then finally she understands this is what we're doing. This is what's going to happen. Janet, how do you navigate this? And can you think of a time when you had a situation with a client?
Yeah, I mean, it happens almost with every client that we work with because they are making decisions about items that have been in their family for decades, or they've had a certain experience and that's why they acquired the item. But if they've already made the decision, or maybe have made the decision to donate it, and the family member doesn't want it, then it's just, I mean, all of the emotional conversations have to occur and being sensitive to it. But at the end of the day, would you rather have this go to another family or wind up in a landfill? I mean, here at least you have an opportunity to, and I don't say it that crass, but I mean that's the reality of it. You're trying to give it to a new family that could enjoy, the very thing that you enjoyed over the years. So
Yeah, the rehoming process, exactly. Getting them out into other homes. Okay. So this is a question for you, Janet. What do you say when a client references what they originally paid for an item and expects it to hold that same value today? And
Yeah.
again, you see this with dining room sets, right?
Yeah, you do see it mainly with a lot of furniture. I get that question at times, but I mean, I'm like, oh wow, that's great. I'm sure that was a great, value, or it was pretty expensive back in the day. And said, and I say, and maybe it's not the right thing, but I say, have you tried selling it in Facebook Marketplace? And more often than not, or another way, more often than not, yeah, it's just no one's going to give me, no, they're not getting the price that they're wanting. And I'm like, okay, and that gives me the segue to go into how they could really benefit from an online auction and the possibilities there. I said, look, and I tell them there's no guarantees in anything. I said, but when you've made the decision that this is not coming to your new home, then you've already started that separation process. So,
Yeah.
so let's just talk about what you can do and what we can do and what you have tried to do, and let's move forward.
Perfect. Uh, Brad, how about you? Have you had people tell you how much they've paid for items in the past and you've had to navigate those expectations?
Yeah, absolutely. It happens a lot. And, you know, I do a combination of things, right? I'll kind of step away for a little bit and then maybe run to Facebook Marketplace and like say it's a table and they're saying, hey, I paid $2,000 for this table brand new. It should be able to get, at least 1,500 out of it, don't you think? And then, I come back and I show them, I say, like, look, right now, here's 45 tables within 5 kilometers of you that are under $100. So, that value is just not it's just not realistic type thing. And I find being direct and honest with the client is 100% necessary, and they respect that a lot. They
100%.
realize, every now and again you get a stubborn one, and then I just say, well, maybe you should try to sell it on marketplace outside of the auction then, right? That might be a better avenue for you type thing. And, sometimes I even try to help them do that. It never works, of course.
Right.
Yeah.
Some people like to learn the hard way. But it's a process. It's hard. It's not easy.
It is.
Stacy,
Yeah.
how about you?
I definitely, do all the things. I, share with them that, we all purchased things back in the day, hoping that they would, increase or hold their value, but not everything does. I mentioned a few things, names that people are familiar with and that will resonate with them. And then I also tell them that, if we have to pay to get rid of it, it's going to cost us a lot more. And we just have to be realistic. Today's world, you can walk into a furniture store and buy a new table, and they're going to have a lovely truck drop it off in the driveway and somebody's going to carry it in and put it down. So you have to be realistic that if somebody's purchasing something from your auction that's big and bulky, there's expenses that they have to incur in order to purchase it. It may be hiring help or renting a truck or things along those lines. So you have to factor that in with the price that it's going to sell for, because people are realistic about that when they're buying big pieces. And typically the things that they're attached to are these, big pieces. So
They
that's
are.
Mhm.
Good point. That reminds me of the pianos. And it's so expensive to move a piano, and they don't
Yes.
think about that.
No, yeah, definitely.
Yes, glad you brought that up. So, all right, Stacy, do you think, what is the biggest misconception clients have about online auctions?
The biggest misconception, I think, is that everything's going to sell for a dollar. I think they think that either it's not going to get attention, people aren't going to buy it, no one's going to know about it, and it's just the complete opposite. I feel like they're skewed in their thinking. They think that the in-person, estate sales are going to do better. In my experience, I find that they're way overpriced. I had an experience with an auction, and I approached the auction person and I said to them, I know that this is not worth this $200 that you put the sticker on. Like, I don't understand. Can you explain your process to me? And she said to me, Oh, well, it's just a starting point. It's a negotiation. And I don't think that they realize that not everybody would walk into an estate sale thinking that. If I saw a piece of furniture that was well overpriced, I would probably say, maybe this isn't the sale for me. I'm going to walk away. So I think that, that's a good experience to share with them as well on that.
Awesome. Brad, how about you? What do you think the biggest misconception people have is about online auctions?
I think the biggest one I get, aside from the one Stacy just mentioned, is that they think only a small portion of their stuff is going to sell, which is easily just to prove to them the sell through rate is, every sale I've ever done with Maxsold has been above 90% sell through rate, and it really puts their mind at ease once they see those numbers and they realize that, hey, this is going to be awesome, and at that point I remind them that there's going to be a lot of items in the auction that you're going to be like, I can't believe I got that much money for. And then there's going to be a couple of items in the auction that you're going to say, oh, I thought I'd get more than that, but it all balances out in the
Yep.
end.
Right.
So
Well
yeah.
said. Yep.
Janet, what would you add to this? What is your experience with this?
It's more of misunderstanding than misconception about what an auction is and what they can or can't put in an auction. I said, put everything in it. Like, honestly, if you see, like I said, hangers or whatever the case may be, put everything in it. So sometimes it's a misunderstanding of what an auction is, but the sell-through rate's an important piece of it, because it's more, and also the visibility, how many people are, the views that they get. It's going to be a lot more views
Yeah.
than just people coming to your house through a traditional means. But everything that they've said already is absolutely true.
Yeah, good point about the views. That's true, that people are always blown away when they hear how many people looked at their sale because it
Right.
was in an online auction format.
Right.
Um, awesome. So, Janet, have you ever had a client who was skeptical about the auction process but became happy with the results at the end? Can you think of a time where this happened and what it was that was the turning point for them that gave them the aha? What did they experience or see?
Well, I don't know if in my experiences, if they were skeptical, more of just not familiar or aware of how it works, and I think the dollar thing probably would add some skepticism to some people too, starting at $1, but I kind of get over that with the same thing we talked about earlier. But I mean, if you explain it right, and usually what I do is I give them information about the auction and how it works right up front. And I send it an email too, and I'm very transparent about this is what it is, da, 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 and then I talk through it with them. And most of them have not really, I mean, I'm doing pretty well with auctions actually, considering everything, because it's just bringing them knowledge and making sure that they know how it works. And the more knowledge you can give them and data that you can give them, the more it kind of appeases some concerns and gives them that level of comfort. Most people, I would say 90% of my clients are happy with the results because it helps to offset the expense that would otherwise have been incurred without an offset.
Right.
Yeah.
Good point. Brad, can you think of a time when somebody was skeptical and there was a specific turning point where they finally realized that this was the right move?
Yeah, I think a lot of our clients start out skeptical of the process. Like just like Janet, I'm very transparent about this is what the auction is. This is what you can expect. This is what we can put in here. This is how it's managed. And then they decide, okay, we'll go ahead with this auction. And most of the time, once we start the process of sorting the home, because we've got it down now, right? Like we go in and we've got our processes, and once they see the team working, they really kind of take a breath and go, hey, like this is probably going to be the right thing to do. Like this is this is going to be easy for me, just like they said it was going to be, rather than, I thought this was just going to be a big headache, right? So, yeah.
Perfect. And Stacy, how about you?
I agree with everything that was said. We recently had an auction where there was an item, it was a piece of artwork that the family must have done some research on, or somebody said something about, and they emailed me and they said, we want to keep this item. Can we take it out of the auction? And I looked and I said, I'm sorry, it has bids on it. We really can't. And they're like, oh, well, we really have to. And I had the phone conversation, and they said to me, I said, well, tell me what is the reason you want to pull it? Why do you want to pull it? And they said, because it's worth a lot of money. And I said, okay. And then I hung up the phone and I sent an email and I said, we have to look at the big picture here. And, I said, if we pull this item from the auction, it has bids. I don't know how many people are bidding on it. I don't know how many other things they're bidding on. We could really cause an upset. And we have over 450 lots in this house that we have to get rid of. So I need you to look at the big picture. I need you to look, you're looking at one item. I'm looking at 450 that I'm hoping to have moved from this house on the pickup day. And they ended up, leaving it in, and the item actually sold for over $1,000. So, you really just have to, have that confidence. I think the email that I sent was very knowledgeable, and it was firm, and I think they got it, and I think that they were happy. And I said, you could bid on it if you want. I don't recommend that, but you could if you feel, but taking it out of the auction is going to do more damage than I think it's worth. And I think we all realize that we did the right thing by leaving it in.
Yeah. Yeah. And that leads me to another question, Stacy, which is good to follow up on this. And you mentioned, how you were confident and firm and, with your messaging to them about
Right.
why and what needs to happen. What advice would you give a newer organizer who is getting into this business and is starting to partner with Maxsold, and they're building the confidence in these conversations to get where you are? Like, what advice would you give them?
I would say just to be honest, and there's nothing wrong with saying, I don't know, or I'm not sure. But you know what? I have a rep who I work personally with at Maxsold. I can call them and they're going to, if I can't answer the question for you, that person is going to support me and they're going to help me give you an answer to that question, because we're not in the woods here. We have a support system that's behind the computer or behind the phone to help us to answer the questions that we personally can. And I think just experience really just gives you that confidence and being honest. I tell people all the time, I can't get, even though I know if we document and photograph this properly, it'll sell well, but I can't guarantee you what that number is. So if you won't be able to sleep at night, if it sells for XYZ, then take it out and don't put it in. And 9 times out of 10, they're like, it goes in the auction, just because I have that, I feel confident in what I'm sharing with them and what I'm saying is true.
Right. That's beautifully put. Brad, how about you? What advice would you give newer partners with Maxsold?
I'd say focus less on selling the auction and focus on understanding the client's goals, because you're going to find that Maxsold is, as far as I'm concerned, Maxsold's the answer for this for the downsize process. Like, I have not found anything that comes even close to working as good as it. So it really sells itself, so just understanding the client's timelines, their goals, and then fitting into that. Learn the auction process thoroughly and understand it, because it saves you time, frustration in the end. And don't ever discuss or give pricing on any items, because you can't guarantee anything at an auction. I even stick away from saying, like, I think it could sell for this. The only thing I do is I say, previously on Maxsold, it has sold for this.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
When you say you advise that they understand the auction process thoroughly. What do you mean by that? Can you clarify that?
So, Mac, you guys have great videos and these webinars out there that are great resources for learning on how to set up an auction, how to run a pickup day, what to include in an auction, what can't be sold in an auction, and just watching all those videos and having any of your team members that may be working for you watch those videos, and then just putting those uses into practice, because there's a lot of good tips and tricks in there, and it sure helped my team out. Whenever I have a new employee start, I've got 4 here's what you're going to watch, and there you go, we'll see you in a couple of hours type thing. So yeah.
Perfect. Yeah, and that is such a good point. Getting your team trained up is so key. Janet, how about you? These newer partners that might start working with Maxsold, how can you advise them on maintaining that confidence in those conversations?
Well, one of my favorite phrases I use when I talk about confidence is just be confident in what you don't know. So, at the end of the day, if you don't know something, like Stacy mentioned, just be confident to say, you know what, great question. I don't know, but I'm going to get the answer for you. And that way you will get the answer for them, but be solution oriented and be confident in what you don't know. And certainly you're already confident in what you do know. So if you can approach it that way, then it gives the client a lot more assurance that they're working with a professional and an expert. And that's what we are.
Yeah, I love that. Be solution oriented. I mean, at the end of the day, we are working in an industry where we are here to help and we're here to provide a solution. And that's the end goal. And keeping that, I think, yes, top of mind is going to engage your client and they're going to trust you. Definitely.
Mhm.
So, we've got about less than 15 minutes left here. Just a couple more questions. So Stacy, what is one phrase or mindset shift that has helped you the most when talking to clients about value and expectations? So one phrase or mindset that has helped you the most when talking to clients about value and expectations. Kind of a good piggyback of what Janet was just talking about.
Yeah. I would definitely say moving volume. I think volume is something I talk with my clients a lot about when we're considering doing an auction. That's one of the biggest selling points is so show them the results and say, we're looking to get rid of a huge volume here, and this is how we can do it. I would say, yeah.
Awesome. And Brad, how about you?
I'd say focus on market value, not remembered value.
Hmm.
Yeah.
That's a good one. Market value, not remembered value. And people know what that means. So putting it in terms that aren't hard for people to follow is important because they're already overwhelmed. And that definitely hits home, I think. Um, so before we look at some questions and answering questions, and I do encourage, I think some of them might be coming in, any questions that anybody here has, go ahead and put them in the Q&A or chat and we'll get them answered. We have one last question for you guys. Brad, is there anything else you would recommend to those looking to Maxsold to leverage the platform to help their clients? Is there any, as a business owner, is there anything that you can tell another business as far as a value add or why they ought to go for it and try it?
Yeah, my biggest recommendation is to build Maxsold into your overall services you offer rather than treating it as a separate add-on, like, oh, here's something else we can do. For our business, it just about every job we go to now, it's something that is a solution for it. So it's easy to start the conversation. It's easy to do the pitch and listen to the client. What do you need here? And it just about always is the right solution for it. So yeah.
Perfect. Janet, how about you? Is there anything that you could tell another business about why they may want to jump in and try it out?
Well, I mean, everything that Brad said, right? Another service offering is always a great option and it puts you as a differentiator against your competitors for sure. But just even getting them to optimize their experience with Maxsold, what I've learned is that when you're taking pictures, make sure you take, 5 really great ones, front, back, the brand, etc. Get measurements, get sizes, and put that all in your description so that it can really set the stage for what the potential buyers have. So that's the really important part of the process. And then if you do that well, it's going to optimize your sale and of course make your client happier.
Yeah, definitely. Stacy, what can you add?
I think that people meet with you or they hire you because they either connect with you or they feel comfortable with you, and being able to provide all of these services and they don't have to, then stop working with you and go with somebody else. Like a continuum, I think of, start to finish, I think is helpful. And people find that valuable, because they know, they see your face, they know you're the person that's been here and you're going to do the same thing. And I do talk to them a lot about, this is what we do. So you could do a lot of it yourself, and they never want to do it themselves. So, it definitely is helpful. This is the way we do it. And if you want to keep costs down, you can do it yourself. But I just think being able to service a client from start to finish, and when we're done, the job is done and they're ready to move on. I think it's so important.
Turnkey.
Perfect.
Yep.
Awesome. We have some questions. So one question in here that's interesting. There's two. I'm going to ask this one first because this does come up a lot. If you're a solopreneur, how does Maxsold help? How do you do this if you are just one solopreneur offering organizing services? You have a client that needs a sale. What would you suggest, Janet?
The solopreneur, meaning you don't have a team, it's just
You don't have a team. Yeah.
Mhm. Well, I mean, Maxsold is a good force multiplier, right? I mean, so if you're a team of one, and trust me, I've been a team of one before, so I know the feeling. But if you're a team of one, you're wearing many, many hats, and having options like Maxsold will serve as a force multiplier for you, and it'll do a lot of the legwork for you instead of you having to do all of the traditional things that an estate sale would require you to do, for example. So yes, you're used to hard work if you're a solopreneur, so you might as well have tools in your work, your tool bench to allow you to do that in a more automated and meaningful way.
Awesome. Stacy, would you add anything to that from the solopreneur perspective?
I think now with smart cataloging, that is actually the answer to someone being a solopreneur, because you can use the app and it does a lot of the work for you. So you just have to be able to navigate that device that you're using, the phone. So the only thing would be that you would probably need some help with pickup. But I think for the cataloging portion of it, with smart cataloging, how fast it is and how efficient it is, it would be easy for a solopreneur to do the cataloging portion on their own, I think.
Perfect. Brad, is there anything you would add to what they've said?
Not much. I mean, just a little bit of process stuff. Like if you're on your own, you're used to wearing many hats, and you can do little things like when you're creating lots, making yourself a list of where those lots are in the home. So then when you go to when pickup day comes, it's easy to know, okay, lot 15 is in bedroom 1 and lot 17 is in master bath, or wherever it is within the home type thing. That'll sure help you out. And I mean, the new streamlined cataloging is fantastic. It really speeds things up. So,
Yeah.
I don't find I need a lot of help.
Yeah,
So
perfect. And just to follow up on what the panelists have said, Fern, I know this question came from you. I operate as a solopreneur, organizer, freelance here. I have a Maxsold sale live in South Carolina, And I'm happy to connect with you at any point in time and answer any questions you have about how I navigate that as a solopreneur. I do it. And like these guys said, the AI component in the cataloging makes it so much easier. Really does. Do any of you, Janet, Stacy, and Brad, do any of you ever offer shipping? Have you offered shipping on any sales before? Because there is a question in here about shipping and pickup and how that works. I'm just curious. Have any of you shipped before?
I have
We'll
not.
We'll do that for other things too, John, even outside of the estate sale. But yeah, we'll offer shipping, and the customer always has to pay for it. The buyer has to pay for it, but we'll ship it for them. That's not a problem. We're used to doing that.
Yeah, so it is, Fern, it is an option. At times we do have a process to go through on our end to vet our partners that do ship, because like Janet was saying, you would have to navigate a bit more and you would have to be responsible for shipping of items. But that is a bigger conversation that we can have. And would anybody like to explain, Stacy, would you like to explain how your pickup process works? They're curious, Fern is curious about how that works.
So there's a formula that's on when you do the auction, when you're ready to close it and for it to set, you can select the amount of people that are helping you, and it auto generates how much time you will need for the pickup. I think I'm kind of torn on what I'm going to say right now. So there is an option of pre-packaging things for a pickup, which you know exactly what I'm saying. Like, I feel like it could be helpful for a pickup, especially for a solopreneur. But then you have the issue that, gosh forbid, something gets broken or damaged or whatever, that could cause another issue. So for a solopreneur, like maybe if you were able to, you get the pickup report, you could put the lots together to make the pickup run smoother, that type of thing. You know, if you have a table and you know that Joe Schmo is coming and he bought lots 10, 12, and 15, then you put them all together, and that kind of will help with the process of the pickup. I myself have a team that I use for my pickup, and they also do the cataloging. So, you know, it's a different situation for me. But for a solopreneur, I could see I've done some smaller auctions, you know, out of my house for, you know, maybe multiple clients. And that's what we do is we put the things together for the pickup and it goes smoother because they can just pack and they're not going from room to room and all over. So that's things that you could do that could be very helpful.
Catherine is asking about pricing your services and how you estimate the cost of prepping a sale. Catherine, first, I just want you to know that the last panelist webinar we did was entirely on that topic, which we can share the recording of with you. So you can get a full hour of panelist feedback on how to do that. But the question of estimating cost and how to do an estimate, I don't know if any of you are comfortable with sharing some thoughts around that for Catherine. Would any of you be interested in fielding that one?
Well,
I don't mind answering it. I think when it's a part of a large project, a downsizing or move management project, it's easier to filter in the cost into that. But lately I've been doing a lot of time and material for auctions, and I explained to my clients that, you know, the team of organizers is the first team to come in and we charge XYZ for this. And they are the people who are going to set up and, you know, put like things together and create, you know, the auction. And then the auction team comes in and it's also each person is billed at XYZ per hour. So whatever you can do in advance to help us will keep the cost down. But, you know, this is what it's going to cost. And obviously, you know, it's going to be dependent on the number of lots. You know, obviously an auction with 200 lots is going to be very different than 400 lots. So you can give a range, but I think it's very hard to give an definite number. Also, you know, with the pickup, that could, you know, if we have a lot of china and a lot of dishware and things like that, that cause, you know, takes a lot of packing and which causes things to be delayed and take a lot of time. So for me, I feel more comfortable charging, you know, an hourly rate per person and explaining that it's dependent on how many lots we have. And that's what the cost will be.
Perfect. Thank you, Stacey. All right, just jumping in here. We're about to wrap up. It's 6:59 here. If you have any questions, you know, require the CEU certificate, looking to start a new partnership with Maxsold, please contact customer success at maxsold.com. We will ensure to connect you to the correct department. This email is monitored by the entire team, so we'll make sure to, quickly get back to you. Again, thank you very much for everyone for participating. Heather, Stacy, Brad,
The
Janet,
second code
appreciate your
word
time. Oh,
is
go ahead.
the second code word is success. I just put it into the chat to make sure you guys have it.
And if you want to be successful, might as well join Maxsold, right?
Only two, Fern. Only two code words.
First code word, conversation. Second one, successful. All right, guys. Appreciate everyone joining.
Thank you, everyone.
Enjoy the rest of your evening. Appreciate everyone.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.